9th August 2020. The farmers in India stood up to Modi because enough was enough. June 6th, 2020. A day of controversy for farmers across India. The implementation of new farming laws by the Indian government resulted in cultural exploitation. The government's new policies have taken away the layer of protection for the farmers in India. The lack of protection has led farmers to believe that suicide is the only answer to their debts. As a result, the Punjab region has been exploited. Modi led the government to divert the 5 rivers in Punjab out to the rest of India, causing the land in Punjab to dry out and the crops to suffer. As the government had taken no action, all the farmers travelled to Delhi. This is where the Indian Parliament is based and where the farmers went to make a stand for their rights. The farmers were faced with violence and brutality by the government. They used tear gas, imprisonment, and physical abuse, and despite these issues, the farmers did not move. They made camps and stayed overnight as a united force. Today, the farmers are still fighting for the appeal of 3 agricultural laws so they can financially support themselves and their families. The farmers want justice against 3 new laws created by the Indian government. These laws were agreed upon by India's Prime Minister Modi, as well as some of the ministers from the Bharatiya Janata Party during coronavirus lockdown in August 2020. India classifies themselves as being a democracy, but the party decided on these laws without informing the parliament. These laws have changed the farming system in India, making it problematic for farmers to make an income. The laws are the Farmers' Produce Trade and Commerce Act, the Essential Commodities Act, the Farmers' Agreement on Price Assurance and Farm Services Act. The first law is the Farmers' Produce Trade and Commerce Act. This act entails creating free, unregulated trade spaces outside the markets, which are referred to as mandis. The dual market structure has one market which is controlled through government supervision and the other with large independent traders within an unregulated market. The large independent traders in the regulated spaces are likely to move into the deregulated markets, and this is where the farmers will lose out due to the differentiation in rules in the 2 spaces. The next act is the Essential Commodities Act. This act creates a structure for contract farming deals. All deals would only be made between farmers and traders, therefore preventing farmers to have the chance to fight against bad deals. The agreements made by the big corporate players increased outside the markets, resulting in its fragmentation. Having the farmers rely on these terms created by such large corporations leaves the farmers at risk of being cut out of the agricultural industry. The final law is the Farmers' Agreement on Price Assurance and Farm Services Act. The third law aims to eradicate storage limits formerly set by the government to control prices. The issue with having access to unlimited storage is that any trader with enough money can stock up. Without government supervision, large corporations can start dictating prices. By deregulating the markets, it was understood by the farmers that the government no longer believed that they needed governmental protection. Altogether, the 3 acts invite large corporations into a fragmented and deregulated market and have the opportunity to exploit farmers. The Indian government believed making these changes to the agricultural industry would benefit the farmers as these laws will allow the industry to grow. The growth is believed to happen through the private sector and giving the large corporate players more opportunities. This includes investing into building organizations and supply chains for agricultural produce in both nation and global markets.
It means that certain bigger corporate houses will be able to dictate with whether the farmers end up getting less for their crops, because essentially the minimum support price isn't valid anymore. So certain corporations can negotiate, and that may mean that certain farmers may not get even the minimum support.
My opinion is of the three laws is that the government has not taken into consideration of the livelihoods of farmers and have been done out of greed, pride, and also not given guaranteed of MSP and abolishing the mandi system. Therefore, I believe that the three laws should be abolished.
Being a Punjabi myself and visiting Punjab quite often, I understand the significance and importance of the agriculture sector, specifically in Punjab. People rely heavily on this industry to provide for themselves and their families, as well as providing a roof over their head. So therefore, I understand the detrimental effects which could follow following the introduction of the three new farm laws. There's a high risk of their land being repossessed, a lot of which is already on loan. There's a high risk of debt being increased already, which is already piling up from years before. So therefore, the introduction of these three new laws does not provide a very good future for the families of Punjab.
Due to these acts, changes within the market have already occurred in the state of Madhya Pradesh, where more than 40 markets have lost business. Additionally, there have been violations of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights whilst the farmers have been protesting. The four most significant violations include: the breach of Article 9 states that no one shall be subject to arbitrary arrest, detention, or banishment. During the protests, there have been over 200 protesters arrested on fabricated charges, 55 journalists arrested, over 100 people missing and taken by the police, in addition to over 300 children missing. Article 13 states that everyone is entitled to freedom of movement and residence within the borders of each state. Furthermore, a resident has the right to leave any country and move back to their own. Despite this, the police in Delhi put up 60 feet of barbed wire and metal spikes at entry points of Delhi to stop people entering. Plus, the government stated that passports will not be given to residents contributing in the protests. Another issue which has occurred involves the violation of Article 17. This article addresses that everyone has the freedom to own a property and not have the property taken from them. When the new deregulation bills were passed for the farmers during the coronavirus lockdown, it took a toll on the farming infrastructure. Consequently, 80% of smaller farms will struggle due to the new bills. Moreover, larger corporate players will be able to take over these small farms due to the farmers' new financial struggles. Furthermore, Article 20 declares that everyone has the right to peacefully create an assembly or association. Despite this, hundreds have already died, many have been arrested under false charges, and thousands have been injured. Plus, cement barricades, metal spikes and barbed wires have been planted to surround the protest sites. Moreover, the protesters have now been blocked at state borders. Subsequently, the Bharatiya Janata Party also played a part in making sure that the protesters could not be heard. This was done through the party carrying out social media blackouts in India. The government's thought process behind this was to stop any information regarding the protests being globally distributed. Even though this was carried out, many people spoke out about the protests internationally through social media. This included well-known celebrities such as Rihanna, Russell Brand, Greta Thunberg, Mindy Kaling, Lily Singh, and many more. This went against the Bharatiya Janata Party's plan to shut the spread of news, and so they decided to retaliate by personally attacking the celebrities. For instance, there were many news reports on these celebrities stating they were stupid or irresponsible. The protests have been going on for a total of 6 months and the farmers have not been given any justice. However, on January the 26th, 2021, there was a minor breakthrough where Modi decided to put a pause on the laws for 18 months, but this does not guarantee that the farmers will receive justice in the long term. Furthermore, since the protests began in 2020, the coronavirus outbreak has gotten significantly worse in India. It is currently the country with the highest number of rising cases and deaths in the world. For instance, in May 2021, so far there has been a 7% increase on new cases and 40% increase on deaths. However, this has not impacted the protesting camps as they are still carrying on with fighting. The camps have shown no new COVID cases and a decline in deaths. Therefore, the protests have not contributed to the spread of the virus in the country, as accused by the Bharatiya Janata Party. Overall, it is clear that the farmers are passionate to have these laws abolished to ensure that they can make a living without the fear of losing everything. They will not give up.